So today, in today's Wednesday Love Chat, I want to talk to you about what to do when it's not working. Why are things not working? And this was totally prompted by me posting a YouTube video not too long ago about what to do when you're arguing with your man. So you couldn't avoid the argument and now you guys are in it, in the heat, and what to do to end it, right? To wrap it up, to make sure it doesn't escalate, to make sure it doesn't get worse, how to do that in a way that brings you closer together after the argument and not just keeps creating more distance or more hard feelings or resentment or whatever you may feel towards one another, right? Whatever negative feeling. And the person commented on my video and was saying, well, Mireille, what happens when it doesn't work? For her specifically, she had tried timeouts and that just wasn't working in her relationship. So I'm actually going to do a video specifically on that topic. But now I thought I would come on here and just talk about what to do when things don't seem to be working in general, right? Like what happens what do you do when you feel like you've had the conversations with your man probably a million times, you've tried to talk to him to get him to open up more and he just stays clammed up and doesn't want to share. Maybe you've already tried, asking him for support or to help you out, maybe around the house or with the kids or whatnot, and he just gets defensive or he gets mad about it or he just doesn't do it. Or maybe you're in a situation where there's not a lot of physical intimacy and you've been trying to initiate more of it, but he just keeps distancing himself. He's just not having any of it. So what do you do? Maybe you've listened to, some friends' advice. Maybe you've been watching videos, reading books, all the things. Maybe you've even gone to therapy. What happens when you've done all those things and it's still not working? Now, I'm going to start off by saying, sometimes I'll say people in general, not just men, can be buttholes, and no matter what you do, it's just not going to work, right? But we're going to talk about all the other circumstances. What are things that you should be thinking about, focusing on to really help you actually see those positive changes in your relationship, in your love life? So I'll just introduce myself. Actually, I haven't done that yet. In case you're new to my world, my name is Mireille. I go by Mireille Nicole in my relationship coaching practice, and I help women have their happily ever after, whether they're in a relationship or divorce, an outer relationship, or just dating, right? How do you get to that fairy tale ending you've always dreamed of as a little girl, especially if there are rough patches? Because if you know my story, you know that I've been through a few rough patches, so I love helping women overcome these challenges. So let's talk about what do you do when things don't seem to be working? And just to share a little bit before I get into it, I used to be a lot softer. I'll admit I used to be a lot softer in my coaching when it came to things not working with ladies, right? Like sometimes ladies would come to me and say, it's not working. And, they feel exhausted, overwhelmed. I'd be like, okay, take a break, or let's try something else. Let's do something different, right? Whereas nowadays, I'm a lot more, miss accountability. Relationship coach, accountability person, right? So I will really look at the situation, make sure to see, what I can call you out on, what's really going on here, and remind you of why you are watching these videos that I do, right? Why do you want to do the work on your relationship, right? Why is it important to you? Who do you want to be? What do you want it to look like? Do you want to be the person that settles, right? Do you want to be the person who, what kind of role model do you want to be for your children, right? Maybe your current kids or your future kids. Who do you want to be, right? So I'm really big now on really exploring. And obviously the first thing I'm going to say for this, right, is going to be to really look at, why are things not working? Really reflect on that. And you're going to say, Mireille, that's obvious, but let's look at a few things. Let's look at a few different aspects of what could be going on here. Because usually it's one of two things, or we can say three things. Like I said at the beginning, one of those things is going to be the person's maybe not just suited for you. Maybe the relationship isn't right. But when it comes to the other things, number one, I'm going to suggest that you always look at the approach that you take, right? And what I mean by the approach, that could mean a few things. Number one could be like, what's your vibe? How are you feeling when you're going into a conversation, maybe it is, or whatever the challenge is that you're not getting, right? In the discussion, even just walking in the room with your man or your husband, how are you feeling? What's this energy that you're bringing in there? That's going to have a huge influence on whether or not the skills or the techniques that you're applying are going to work or not, because people can feel your energy. We always say the women are the intuitive ones, but the men also can feel that energy that you exude when you walk into a room. We are powerful beings and we're so connected. What is also, what are the words that you're using? Like, words are super important. And I don't want you to think I get stuck on semantics, but usually in the beginning, I do get stuck on semantics because there's certain words that are going to trigger a more positive response than others. So if we can start that way, and I'm not suggesting that you become very robotic in your relationship, in your conversation with your man. That is like totally not romantic, right? But there are a few different, there's different lingo that you want to start getting comfortable with. And the more you use it and that you try it on for yourself, the more comfortable it will feel, right? And then you can start adapting it to what feels more natural to you. But words often do mean, are really important a lot of the times, right? And there's also kind of your timing. So we'll talk more about timing, in the, oops, sorry, I hit my microphone, in the next point. But usually, that's going to have a big influence in terms of utilizing these skills that you will either get taught when you work with someone on coaching or that you'll see online, right? That's going to have a huge impact on how you, the kind of result that you get. Okay, so you really want to start looking at your emotions, what's going on from that perspective, really looking at the way you're saying things. Like, it's really simple at the end of the day, right? If something's not working, the first thing you want to do is, okay, what am I doing and what could I be doing differently? And I know it might sound obvious, but a lot of times that's where I'm here, right? To share with you some of these tips in terms of what you can say and what you can try out to really see what kind of result that you get. Because a lot of times we have blind spots. We don't even realize what we're doing, right? Are you approaching a situation from a very emotional place? Are you approaching a situation from a pattern that you have? And sometimes it's not obvious to us that we're actually doing these things. So you really want to really have a look at your approach to things and really make some concrete, some really visible or even audible changes, right, to what you're doing to really try to influence those results and start seeing that things can maybe work in your relationship. All right. So like I said, might not always be the case, but you really never want to use that as an excuse not to do the valid work and not to practice these skills. Because I will always say to women, whether or not you discover it's the right thing for you or it's not the right thing for you, you want to have those skills, right? With the person you're with or with the next person, it doesn't matter. You really want to master just being in your feminine energy, having these powerful communication skills so you can create an amazing, wonderful, fulfilling relationship. Also, the other thing I'll say about approaches is that sometimes some approaches just won't work for you. And I know that is something I experienced in my own relationship. So when I started doing the work, I got support. I hired someone to coach me through it, to support me through it. And also at the same time, I was watching all these videos myself, right? And I was reading all the books and doing all the things. And there were just some things that didn't work for me in my relationship. Like, I know there's someone I follow and I love her relationship advice, and a lot of stuff I implemented in my own relationship, and I do also coach women on. But for example, there's one part where she teaches how if, a man starts talking and he just won't shut up, and it's all about him. And what she suggested, one tool that you could use was to look away. And I think it's like, look away, count for 40 seconds, and then that'll just he'll get the picture, apparently. Well, I did that with my husband. I think he was my boyfriend. Yeah, this was at the beginning, right? When our relationship was still rocky. We hadn't gotten married yet. There's a lot going on. And I was trying on these different techniques and doing the work. And I tried doing that and he got so mad. He got so mad. So, hey, I took that as feedback, right? It's never failure. It's just feedback. And I'll always remember that. And there's another thing too. I was reading this book actually, and I was trying to find exactly what the relationship expert said in that book today, because I wanted to quote it for you guys watching. And I couldn't find it. And he said something about kind of matching the mood of your partner, right? Like if they're sad, to show empathy. But he didn't say it exactly like that. He said in a way that sounded, that just didn't sound right to me, because I know in my relationship, and I did a whole video on this on my YouTube channel, I forget what it's called exactly, something about being empathetic versus codependent, and how I really had to, that is something huge that I discovered for myself in my relationship. I thought I was being empathetic, but I was actually being really codependent. So when I read that in the book, I was like, I'm not sure I would stand behind that technique or that suggestion the way it was written anyways, right? So the whole point, and I'm not saying that to discredit this person, like I love the advice from this person, he's an expert, whatnot, but just to illustrate the point that there's some things you're going to have to try on and see how they work in your relationship. And that's part of the, make it part of the fun of what you're doing, right? Just like I said, you take it as feedback, not as failure. You get to see what works for you. You get to see what doesn't work. And it's like, hey, that didn't work. I'll try on something else. Now, the second part I wanted to talk about, the second thing to look at if things are working is really to look at the timing in the sense of how long have you been implementing these skills, right? Like you see this in the diet world. You're not going to lose 20 pounds if you eat a salad once, right? Or even if you eat a salad for a whole week, you're not going to lose 20 pounds unless like there's something wonky or something added to the salad dressing that is like new or whatnot that I'm not aware of. But for the most part, that's not going to happen. Same thing when you start a fitness routine, you're not going to work out at the gym once, twice, or even for a month probably before you get that perfect bikini ready six pack. It is something that you work on over time. And this is, I've told this story, I think a long time ago, and it just came to me again. I wanted to share it because I'm just all this whole, like if you're watching my stories today, this whole celebrity thing that I posted about. So I had celebrities on my mind, and I'll always remember I watching some sort of clip where Kristen Bell, was talking about how she went to therapy, and I forget if it was just for herself or if it was for her relationship with Dax. And she was sharing how her therapist, Harry, which she loves, and she shared such great advice that he told her during that. But one of the things he told her was that you can't walk 10 miles into the forest and expect to get out in 5 miles or something like that, right? There was a difference. You can't expect to just go into something for a long time. In my case, for years, right? With my current dream man, where for years, I think like maybe 3 years, I say, was our period of things being kind of rocky. And obviously it wasn't always terrible, but it was like on a downward trend for those 3 years. And so for myself, I know when I started doing the work in my own situation, I didn't have this expectation that I would resolve everything even in a week, right? And I say a week because for a while there, I was offering 7-day intensives to work with women to make radical shifts in their love lives. And what I came to realize was that a lot of times, it's going to take more than that. There are certain circumstances. Obviously, I can give you a piece of advice. We can have a conversation and things will shift right away. But a lot of the time, this is work that needs to be integrated into your life. There are different techniques that we have to try on and that we layer on top of the other. So I kind of avoid those more and more nowadays because I've come to realize that it does take time. And for me, it also took time, right? I share the story of how I started doing the work and working with someone on my relationship, and it took I say that we're still working on our relationship, right? It never ends. Like when I started really when I had a really good toolbox of different skills and techniques, I would say after several weeks, I was seeing big shifts. That's when my man proposed to me, and then 6 months later, we were married. Like things can happen pretty quickly, but I have to say we're still doing the work and it's never perfect and it's just something that's ongoing. So if you're saying it's not working, I encourage you to really look at the bigger picture, first of all, and to just keep in mind, keep the perspective that, it's going to take time. And that's the beauty of it. It's the journey. Just like anything else, we're always thinking about the destination. I want everything to be changed and perfect right away. But the beauty is always in the journey towards that destination. So that is what I wanted to share today. I hope this was helpful. Just a reminder, to give yourself, and I'm saying that from the perspective of really cutting yourself some slack, right? Giving yourself a little bit of grace and giving yourself the opportunity to try things on and to fail or not fail, but fail and just perceive it as feedback and try something else and not to give up. Because at the end of the day, I know a lot of times it's hard to do these things in the situation where maybe we have so much anger and we're holding on to things, and that's part of the work. It's harder to implement these skills because we find ourselves stuck in that situation. But we have to remember that we're doing this for the bigger picture no matter what, right? We want to become the woman who has those amazing skills in a relationship, who can communicate, who can assert herself, who can negotiate appropriately, who can get her needs met, who can get her desires met, who can, truly value the man and lift him up and support him in a way that he's also going to support her, right? It's also going to support you at the end of the day. So really becoming that, that magnetic goddess that's going to attract, right, your Mr. Right, your dream man, or even your current husband, right? If you find yourself him distancing himself, how do you get him back, right? How do you become that better offer again so he turns towards you? So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below and I will get back to you. If you have anything that you want to discuss, this may be more personal, make sure to hit me up in the DMs. Maybe just DM me the word fairy tale. I will get back to you and we can go over your situation. That's it for now. It's Wednesday date night at the same time, so I'm going to go meet up with my husband.